Willkommen zum Reinsurance Podcast, live aus Baden-Baden. Wir sind hier für die jährliche Rückversicherungskonferenz, wo sich führende Mitglieder der Branche versammeln, um über die neuesten Trends, Herausforderungen und Innovationen zu sprechen. Bleiben Sie dran für exklusive Einblicke direkt von der Konferenz. Oh, welcome back, Dani, to the Reinsurance Podcast. Last time we met, it was in sunny Monaco, but this time Baden-Baden with a bit of rain. How are you finding Baden-Baden?
Yeah, hi Ben. It's great. I mean, obviously I'm used to the sun shining in Monaco, but this has actually been incredible. It's really so many people here, so many meetings. I suppose it's a different stage of the process, different type of people, but it's just as exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And what are you finding people are talking about this Baden in particular? What's taking the agenda?
So I guess the thing on everyone's lips at the moment is what's going to happen with pricing at 1/1. Obviously, there's a lot of talk of rate softening and what that's going to be like. Brokers saying, well, there's a rates are going to come down a fair bit. Reinsurers saying, well, it's going to be stable and sustainable, and we're going to. But ultimately, I think everyone knows there's a change happening, and you can feel in there the people we're talking to are thinking about it and how they deal with it, and what they need to be doing in their business, in their systems, in the way they monitor risk, etc., to allow for that coming change. So I think that feels like the big news story at the moment.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. And I'm glad we've got you with us here today to talk about some of the broader data and technology questions, right? Because there's so much noise in this space. You know, there's an AI revolution happening. There's still some quite archaic data practices going on. And in the middle, there are real solutions and people who need them. So how are you finding it when people turn to you to talk about reinsurance pricing technology, for example? What's the main thing they want to solve for at the moment?
I think what people are looking for is how they improve their pricing. What we find when we talk to the companies is often they have systems that they've built that are very legacy spreadsheets that are kind of cobbled together, doing various different things. And I think what they're realizing is that they're not good enough when there's so much change happening, and they want to see new technology coming in to understand the risk better, to model it better, to be able to structure structure treaties better, because obviously the more you know about the price and the better your data is, the more products you can implement, the more features you can, and the more comfortable you feel with your rating. So technology is definitely a big theme of what we're talking about. And at Optolytics, we've recently built a reinsurance pricing system, which is designed for the reinsurers to help them get a much deeper insight into what the risk is and how it should be priced.
Amazing. And I guess in the realms of reinsurance pricing systems and so on, what are the costs of still having a cobbled together spreadsheet instead of a modern system?
Well, I mean, the costs can be significant if you're not tracking what's going on. If you're issuing, for example, a lot of people with spreadsheets don't collect the data of quotes that they're issuing, and that data is just incredibly valuable. Knowing what's happening with your experience is incredibly important. But if that data is sitting on a directory structure somewhere hidden away from all your analytics, that can be very, very expensive, because by the time you pull it out, the rates have changed and people have moved, and you can't actually see where the prices should be. And I think in a softening market where you're getting closer and closer to where the actual underlying experience is, that becomes more and more important.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And something I've always wondered, I guess, in a subscription market where people often take the same price, what's the biggest advantage you can have if you are better at pricing, or if you have the most modern pricing tools? How can you press that to your advantage?
Well, there are a number of areas. The first is around the capital that you hold against those risks. If you're better at analyzing the underlying risk, you can set the capital at a lower level than other people might, which means your input costs for your reinsurance could potentially be even lower. Yeah. The second thing I guess the second benefit you get is you can price features in your reinsurance that other people might not be able to, like loss corridors, reinstatement premiums, and you get much more confidence about what they look like. Yeah. So you get extra input into what into kind of how those structures should look. And the third is that as an underwriter, you're able to sit with your broker and work through those structures together, understanding that as you change it, you get real-time responses on what those prices should be.
Yeah, no, super exciting. And I guess that's what we're hoping to see in the market. And obviously, there's the future promise maybe of even these AI-powered, superstar solutions as well. But are the reinsurers getting what they need today in terms of data from their clients and from their brokers to feed these models, or is there a call to arms for anything more there?
The thing is, I think the data that people are collecting is so significant. I think people just don't use it enough.
Yeah.
So in other words, if you think about it, a treaty with, let's say, 1,000 properties on it is going to throw out lots and lots of claims that are very, very valuable. The problem is if you look at each treaty on its own, it might not be enough.
Yeah.
But when you kind of combine them together, that's a lot of data that we're collecting as an industry. A reinsurer that's pricing 1,000 treaties should be generating around 5 terabytes of data that they then use for their analysis.
Yeah.
And that obviously is critical for them in terms of how they analyze things, but also it starts building up. Think about the data that you're starting to build up.
Serious amounts of data, yeah.
So there is a lot there already. I think people are just maybe not capturing and putting in the right place.
Yeah, it makes sense. I guess at the moment we're in the Baden-Baden negotiations time of the year, I suppose, right? So you're seeing everybody have these very serious discussions. And it's the race to 1-1s where all the deals will finally be concluded, or lots of them will be. Do you get involved in what happens after that when they have to make sense of the deals they've actually done? What do people talk about are the main issues in sort of post-placement, I suppose?
I guess we get involved a little bit in terms of how those deals get bound, and then obviously at the renewals we'll get involved. People are analyzing the experience. The new reinsurance technology that we've built allows them to analyze, as a reinsurer, to analyze that experience over the course of the year a little bit more closely. Yeah. So obviously that is something that we help them with. The new systems that we built mean that you can instantly upload your bordereau, etc., into your system and track the experience over the course of the year. So that's interesting.
Yeah, no, super exciting. And I guess in the next year, we'll be in 2026, which always comes as a surprise. That's come very quickly round to us. What are you excited about looking ahead to 2026 and maybe even beyond that?
So I think what I'm excited about is the fact that all these new database technologies that are coming out. And I know everyone talks about AI, but actually the data is really what you want. And this data is incredibly rich. When you talk about huge amounts of data that you can analyze really, really, really quickly, I think people haven't yet started applying that effectively in their reinsurance pricing. And I'm starting to see that stuff come up because it's a lot cheaper now to store data, to analyze data, to use the data in meaningful ways. I think that's going to start emerging. Even before AI starts getting used more extensively in pricing, the data's got to be stored and analyzed. Yeah,
no, that's just very exciting. Any thoughts on AI in the longer term, I guess? Is that exciting for us? Or
I think it is, but I think for reinsurers, I think we're still at the very early stages. Yeah. Whenever I talk to reinsurers about AI, I see a solution looking for a problem.
Yeah.
And people are trying to find out how they can apply it more effectively. My sense is that it's very useful at the margins, effectively improving efficiency in the process. So quote ingestion is very useful. Some forms of analytics is very useful. But my view is that where AI will really come into its own is when the data builds up. Yeah. When you've got 5 terabytes of data that you're collecting every year, and you want to analyze what's happening with it, suddenly the only way to do it is via AI. Yeah. And that's going to tell us what the trends are, etc. But at the moment, most reinsurers are not collecting that data.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for them, the AI is still many, many years in the future. You can apply AI to a non-data rich organization and you're not going to get any output. Apply AI to a very data rich company, suddenly real insight will emerge.
Yeah, really, really sound advice, I think, for the industry on where we can focus in the meantime, whilst I guess the race to build God plays out on the other side of the pond. We need to be ready to use it, I suppose, once it's finally ready. 100%. So hopefully we'll get to that point. Dani, a pleasure having you on the show. Any final thoughts before we wrap up and let you loose back into the Baden-Baden fray? Yeah,
I guess final thoughts to the people that are kind of concluding these treaties this year. I think good luck. There's a lot at stake, I guess, for the industry and for people's, I guess, back pockets effectively. Yeah. And hopefully it turns out to be a very good 1-1.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Thank you, Dani. Great having you on the show, and best of luck with the rest of Baden.
Thank you very much.